on a whole, it seems, employees today are just feeling very disengaged. And since our focus is Gen Z, I'm curious to know, like, from your experience, you work very closely with that cohort or that population, perhaps. So maybe two questions here. Just what according to you are some of the high level trends which is causing some of the disengagement, and
Yeah.
especially with Gen Z, because I remember reading a Gallup poll, which is 2022, saying that close to 55% of the Gen Zs feel they're not very happy, they're not
Right.
very engaged.
Right.
So maybe some insights from your work.
Yeah, of course. So I think the first thing I'll lead with in a little bit from your last question, if you want to take the cynical view, I don't want to go fully cynical, but a reason this is coming to the forefront is because companies are hurting. It's something that they're finding they need to pay more attention to. The voluntary turnover rates, it's slowed down a bit this year, but the preceding 2 to 3 years, the kind of great resignation it was coined, that's the reason companies are really paying attention to this, because people had a lot of employment options, especially Gen Z. The unemployment levels around much of the world, especially here in the US, were very low. And especially for entry level jobs, they were very much in demand.
Mhm.
And so naturally, they were exploring their options and seeing what opportunities existed to them. And that meant those voluntary turnover rates were rising. And companies realized, wow, we can't just hire someone, throw them in a cubicle or do remote work and just expect them to be there 1 to 5 years like they maybe did traditionally. In terms of Gen Z specifically,
Sure.
I think this is very much a trend that you have this legacy of kind of the way business is done, that is possibly 5, 6, 7 decades, maybe maybe longer. This kind of tradition, everything from the way we run meetings, the way we collaborate. There's still a lot of tradition that existed before connectivity, before we could have these Zoom calls from around the world and be talking to each other within seconds. And so I think you started seeing more of a fracture happening once millennials joined the workforce, but there was still that pressure of, all right, this is the way things are done. Just do your job and don't worry about it. And I think increasingly, as you have a generation that was fully interconnected, fully digital communications from the moment they were born, or at the very minimum when they got their first smartphone, you're just finding a misalignment between these legacy strategies, legacy institutions in the business world, and the way that Gen Z is used to collaborating, communicating, and producing. And so I know and you, as you said, we're going very high level. So I'll try to
Sure.
get a little bit specific. So first of all, just the way we communicate.
Yeah.
Some of the older generations, phone played a much bigger role. Actually, jumping on the phone and calling someone.
Yeah.
So I kind of associate the boomer generation. Gen X started to really champion email. That was pretty cutting edge at the time. You started to see tools like instant messaging type of tools, and so it's of course an evolution. Gen Z grew up pretty much communicating via all kinds of different messaging services. They're very, very comfortable texting, and even when they use the voice akin to a phone call, it might be as a video or a phone message rather than that real time as someone jumps on the phone. So I think communication methods are evolving. I think another thing that companies are really struggling with is the feedback loop, how quickly that needs to happen. Again, if I think about sort of the legacy of business tradition, oftentimes employees were evaluated annually, like one time a year, a very high stakes meeting where you go in with your manager, and that might mean you're getting promoted. It might be you're getting a raise. It might mean you're getting fired, being on some performance improvement plan. But like that's so misaligned with how Gen Z, like many of the devices, the tools, the technology they've been using all their lives, you get instant feedback, right? You put in an answer and it says it's either right or wrong. There's no delay whatsoever. Or you post something and within, if not seconds, within minutes, certainly hours, you're getting all kinds of feedback. People really liked what you posted, or people didn't, or people just ignored it. Like there's this immediacy that they're used to. And so this idea of I'm only going to be evaluated, and sometimes even progressive companies are doing quarterly reviews, and even that is much too long. And I've actually heard comments. I think this is kind of surprising to me, but it makes sense. I've heard comments from Gen Z employees saying they almost feel like that's kind of manipulative. Like, tell me what I'm doing wrong now so that we can fix it, rather than holding that information in some journal somewhere and sharing it with me in a month or two or 9 months. Like, we could have maybe just addressed that. And so they want those immediate or as soon as possible steps to improve. We coach a lot of our clients on, like, let's connect. Let's set up cadences to meet with people on a weekly basis, if not more regularly. And as I mentioned, communications just before this point, being open to communicating on different levels, whether it is kind of a Slack type of message. It doesn't have to always be a sit down formal one-on-one, because some of their issues might be things that they want feedback or mentoring in more of a real-time environment. Obviously, there's boundaries that need to be set there. So yeah, I think those are some of the things that really jump out to me in terms of just why Gen Z is finding this sort of traditional business environment very frustrating to manage based on what they're used to.